Hello, and welcome back to the Elevate Your Running podcast. My name is Sarah, and I'm your host today. And I also have my training partner and PT extraordinaire, Jenna Zajac, on the show. And today we're talking all about the Indianapolis Marathon, which we ran about gosh, I don't know, like 30 hours ago or something. We finished maybe 30 hours ago. So we are fresh off of the marathon and we are here to talk about our training, but also answer all of your questions that you submitted through Instagram yesterday. And we have some good questions. But before we begin, hey Jenna, how's it going?
Long time no see, Sarah. Thanks for having me back. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, it's exciting to have you back on the show. And this was something that we were really excited to talk about. This was an episode that we were really looking forward to. And I think you all are excited to hear about it too, because there was a lot that went into this training cycle. This training cycle was 13 weeks for both of us. We started on the same day. We knew we were running the same marathon and we were on the same team. Jenna had just moved to Boulder and we decided to link up for like a 14-mile long run. Now, if you are a runner who runs with people, like that that's kind of rolling the dice a little bit to see like you don't always drive with people or like the conversation might not flow, it might be kind of stagnant, or you might have to really like work on the convo, but from like the first step, stride for stride, there was just like so much joy, so much friendship created. So over the last 13 weeks, we've just had a blast training for this race. And I would say arguably, I think after yesterday, I can't speak for you, but I'm gonna just guess based off of yesterday. I think we both feel like the training was just so special, so much fun. Definitely the highlight of the entire series. Yesterday got to be a celebration of sorts. We did get to run together for about 14, 15-ish miles. It kind of very like blurry after that for me. But I know we ran together for at least through the half because I remember making the turn with you and all the things going on at that moment in time. But yeah, is there anything that you want to share about like the last 13 weeks before we dive into these Q&As?
Yeah, it's definitely, I agree. I think the training was such a fun piece of it and something really special. And I think, you can be doing the same race as someone, but to be able to do all of those different workouts, easy runs, long runs, and just to be able to form that close bond as well as in friendship made all the difference. It was just something like I know we talk about different races moving forward, and I think like this Indy training though is always something we'll remember and look back on, fondly for the most part. I know touch and go some days.
Like yesterday?
Yeah, yeah, race day
Yikes.
sometimes goes that way, right?
Yeah.
But it was really fun overall, and just I think so grateful for like the friendship beyond anything else that we've been able to develop from it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what it's all about, right? Like the connection, the friendships, the joy, the processes created. For those wondering, we had a 13-week build. We were running pretty high mileage for being in the running space or being in the marathon space. It's definitely not high for Boulder, but it is high, I think, across the general running community. We spent a lot of our Wednesday mornings obviously together on the track with Nell and the rest of the team. And then Saturday mornings, it was always where are we running? And if we're running north, Jenna's picking up Sarah. And if we're running south, Sarah's picking up Jenna. And we would drive together. We would get food and coffee after our long runs. And then we would immediately go into our strength session. And it just became, I mean, it was so much fun. And then we had a lot of fun with like matching outfits. Most of the time, for those who are wondering, we were not planning the matching outfits. We didn't plan the matching outfits. They just naturally happened. And then there were a few times where we planned it. And then, of course, yesterday we were matching and that was planned. And we had a few different outfits throughout the course of the cycle. And the one that we wore yesterday was what we landed on. But it was a lot of fun. And it was very, very different from any other cycle I've had. I've trained a lot Over the last 2 years, obviously with the Wednesday team with Nell, and Nell's group has grown quite a bit from 2 years ago when I first started on those Wednesday morning workouts. But I'd always run my long runs pretty much alone. Emily from our team joined me and Tony for this epic Boston long run where Nell wanted us to start like on top of a canyon and literally just like bomb down this thing to like trash our quads as best as we could. And then we flowed into like marathon pace on rolling hills for a very, very, very long time. And that was such a fun run with Emily and Tony. But other than that, maybe some people here or there would jump in and maybe join me for a few, but it was never this like, we have the same plan. I mean, it was like we joke, if Nell's listening, we love you, but we were joking that it was like a literal like copy paste. Like what Jenna had, Sarah had, and vice versa. And so we would go into our Saturday mornings with the exact same workout, exact same paces, needing like the exact same route. I think there was one long run where Nell gave us the route. And that actually, I was thinking about this yesterday, Jenna. It ended up being on dirt roads with some rollers. And we were both kind of stumped on this because we thought, Indy's flat. Why are we running these hills? Why are we doing this extra work? It seems like a lot. It seems like maybe like we don't need to do this for such a flat course. Well, joke's on us because the course is not flat. And I thought about that yesterday. I was like, oh yeah, that run actually was like kind of perfect. Those rollers and like remember like running that marathon pace up those hills, which felt much better and bolder than it did yesterday at sea level. But you know, that's going to be the day. But yeah, we had a lot of fun. There was a lot of real goodness created.
Yeah, yeah, no, it was great. It was something that it's like now I'm like, what are we doing next Saturday? Like it's weirder on Wednesdays, like not having that now where that we're in this break. And yeah, definitely gonna miss all of that. A lot of memories and the indie album to look back on to remember all of it.
Yeah, so we have a shared album that we created at the beginning of the training cycle, and we have a ton of photos, videos, and then our fabulous photographer Dave, who's on the track on Wednesday mornings, sent us a link to a lot of the photos that he has taken but not shared on social media. So we have those as well. And I'll probably start using some of those as I come out of this brain fog that I seem to be in right now, just after the marathon and create some posts around more about the training and changes I've specifically made in this training cycle and some different things that I want to promote about consistency and continuing to work towards goals and how age is just a number because at 42 years old, I PR'd the 42K yesterday, which was exciting. 7-minute PR, which I was really, really proud of. But it was still a very tough day. I would say and Jenna didn't have quite the day that we wanted to have because we had basically the same race plan. We did have the same race plan through the half. And you know, it was still a tough day. It was still a tough day. It was I didn't feel great. I put that in my notes to now. I did not feel great. I think we were a bit taken back by how the pace was starting to feel early on. And I kept telling you, like, we just need to warm up. It's going to take a bit to warm up. But you know, it just never really seemed to happen. There were a few miles in there that felt pretty good, like 8, 9, 10. Those were feeling pretty good. But the course itself is a big loop and a lot of turns. And for anyone who hasn't run Indy before, it is a it can be a fast course. It can be a fast course. The road conditions are pretty terrible. And I knew that from last year. I ran the half marathon last year and I knew that. I knew that the road had a lot of divots. There's parts where you're running over like cobblestone or bricks, which is like, you know, it doesn't feel great on super shoes or any type of running shoe. But I also knew in the half it was only for like 2 or 3 miles. What I didn't know was that in the marathon, I mean, it seemed like it just kept going. It was just continuous. And it actually started to be something that became, at least for me, it became something that I was so focused on. So I wasn't rolling an ankle or like hitting a pothole, which I had done a few times anyways yesterday. I know you saw me. And it's just like, oh, you're just kind of like jarred. it's just an added thing that I think I was like having to like work through that I wasn't really anticipating or planning. And I know that that's some of that is just me and my nature and how I run. And I run a little bit more timid on uneven surfaces. But Jenna, what did you think of that experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think especially, the first miles where it's like super congested, I was like staring at the ground for like the entire time because
Yeah.
I was just like anticipating what was coming, like knowing that there were like potholes and divots and like even in like the white dashed lines in the lanes, they were like gutted in a little bit too, so you had to watch out for that. But yeah, I mean, you saw me half the time on turns. I had to like jump up onto sidewalks because it was
Yeah.
just like getting cut off or like how the course was. I don't think I was like anticipating either the half road closures and
Yeah.
such a lot of the
Yeah.
time. But yeah, definitely, I felt like I was spending a lot of energy like making sure I just didn't trip and fall.
Yeah, right. Because like that's the worst. And like I did see someone yesterday with their coach and she was all bloody and she was like, I tripped and I fell. And like I don't think she had a great race at all. And that's really scary because it was congested at the beginning for sure. It was very, very, very congested, just like last year. And I would say it's congested through the 5K. When we both jumped over the sidewalk, which was probably around miles like 4 or 5. It was early on. I made a joke that we were in a steeplechase. Vibes were still high at that point. And we had a great little pack that we ran with. The original, I think we're actually going to get into this on a different question, but we were running with the 305 team to start, but the 305 pacer was starting out pretty fast. And someone had said that there was a girl in our pack. There was maybe 10 of us running. And she said, I talked to the pacer. He said he's going out hot and then he's pulling back and then he's settling into pace. And some other guy was like, that's the exact opposite of what you want to do. And I'm like, yeah, like my coaching brain's like turning on. And I'm just like, it's kind of frustrating because that's a good way to set everyone up for failure, really. And we had a really special, fun moment too around that time where I think I had said something. Maybe it was to you, Jenna. Maybe it was to the group. But a guy had turned around and he's like, "Are you Sarah? Are you from Elevate Your Running podcast?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I am." So shout out to David. Hey, David. David crushed the race. He ran a 3:05:55. I know that because David and I also stood together in the TSA line at the airport yesterday as we headed back he was heading back to California. I was obviously heading back to Colorado. And it was great to talk to him. And inevitably, when we made the turn at mile 13, Jenna and I had originally said to each other, like, great, we just have to like run back to the cars, essentially kind of how we were thinking about it, because you're just running back to the finish line with a lot of turns and such and hills that we found out on the course. But yeah, he had lost the 305 pacer probably right around mile 14. We were running with them. It felt good to run with the group. I was really loving that. I got a lot of energy from all the people on the sidelines and people like biking and stuff who kept shouting out 305, 305. And for someone who's going after a big PR like we were, that was very motivating for me. I was like, heck yes, like we're going after this. We're at 305. This is so exciting. And then something happened. I lost focus a little bit. We dropped back in pace, and all of a sudden I couldn't see the pacer. And we lost him. And this was like mile 14. The hills had started. There was headwind in the second half. I felt the headwind. Did you, Jenna? Did you feel
Oh
that?
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it was there. It was definitely there. And I think obviously if we were with the group, that would have helped stop some, we would have been able to draft off that group. But it just ended up being a pretty tough half for both of us. I really fought hard. We both fought hard. And it just ended up being a little bit slower than what we were hoping for. But at the end of the day, the race itself is very well organized. It was a fun experience. The vibes were high. I think feedback on the race, I have two things. And then Jenna, you can like share yours. Obviously, the road conditions were pretty. pretty rough. And there was even a point, this was maybe miles 10, 11, we're making a right hand turn. I'm on Jenna's right. So she's on the outside making the turn. And the course is like half the road and the other half is open to traffic. But there was a car that was like kind of in our lane. And Jenna made the turn and the road was so rough. We were both like our feet were just kind of like stuttering to like not fall and make the turn and also not get hit by this car. And it's like, I guess anytime you have that extra adrenaline just kind of like running through your body like that, or cortisol or whatever, like that's just not, it's just one extra thing that you don't really need to have on race day. So that was really interesting. So I would say, yeah, like I think the road was definitely a tough, tough piece to yesterday.
Yeah, yeah, no, I think that was huge. I think positive feedback was if you're ever going to run a race, do it after a Taylor Swift concert where there is a huge, just like essentially like monument dedicated to her on a hotel at the finish line. Like, talk about motivation. But yeah, I think in terms of like feedback, yeah, definitely the road. I think just having with like road closures and such, and it was like cars were still coming down some of the roads that were closed, at least when I was running. And so it just made it like a little bit more stressful. And I was seeing people like
Yeah.
drift and cars almost hit them, and then I'm worried about them and things like that. So I think that definitely like threw me a little bit. And I think all the turns got to me too a little more than maybe anticipated. Like the straightaways were great, but there was just a lot of these like changes and turns and like sharp turns or almost 180 where you're just like can just really throw you, especially if you're hurting.
Yeah, especially in the first like 4 or 5 miles, and then again between mile 11-ish, make the like go up to 13, and then we cruise down to like 16, 17. That was definitely like very windy and turny, and it just takes extra effort. But that's also the marathon. I know people who had great days there yesterday, and it is a fast course. And yeah, I mean, the vibe was so extra in Indy because Taylor Swift was there last week, and the city of Indianapolis left up all of the like leftover signage. And like, even at the airport, I saw like it's like Swifty Airlines or something. Like, they just had like all this stuff about Taylor Swift, and it was all in pink. And it was such a vibe. And it was so cool because you could see her anytime you walked outside of the hotel room and wherever you were outside. And we weren't outside too much. Like, we really tried to like rein things in. When you're running a marathon, it's ideal to like really be off your feet the day before, and you're not sightseeing, you're really staying in your room, you're keeping stress levels low, keeping very like things just very like easy, right? um and it was just so fun to see her. And of course, we saw her during our warm up. And we warmed up for about 5 minutes, is what we decided. And then we were going to do a few strides. And Jenna's hat flew off. It was windy. Jenna's hat flew off. And so she ran after to get it. And I went into the hotel and I walked into like Sarah Hall. And I was like, well, if this isn't just like the best day ever, I have Taylor Swift, I have Sarah Hall. It's going to be a great day. It's a good day to have a great day. And that's kind of how we started.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it was fun too, just thinking about with Taylor being at the finish. I know we thought a lot about at like that turnaround point where like just run back to Taylor.
Just run back to Taylor.
Just run back to Taylor.
Yeah. A good friend, Laura, she videoed, she grabbed a video of me at like kind of the finishing kick coming through. And she's like, you just had like the biggest smile on your face. And I'm like, that's because I knew I was so close to the turn and I was going to see Taylor and all of this was going to be over. It wasn't like, yeah, I mean, I was excited. I knew I was going to PR. I knew I was between 305 and 310 because the 310 pacer didn't pass me, but I didn't really know where I was. I was kind of just like in this space of like grinding through these last few miles that were pretty slow for what I wanted to run. And it was just like this really like fun moment because I knew I was so close to being done. And then of course, like asking someone as I crossed the finish line to use their phone because I didn't run with my phone. I never run with my phone. And I think we found out in training too, if I run with my phone, it tends to just randomly go off and it's like my alarm or some random podcast starts playing. And I didn't want to deal with that yesterday. So I like asked a lady to use her phone to track Jenna to see where she was. And that was kind of the finish there. I will have to say before we get into the questions, one more thing. I thought that the beginning, when we were standing in the corral, we had the national anthem. They played a Taylor Swift song, Shake It Off, and then they played the commentary of Cole Hawker's 1,500-meter win with Kara Goucher and the other sportscaster. And it was so incredible and it was so electrifying. And I had goosebumps and I was just like, this is our day. This is our day. The weather was like 45 degrees at the start. So a little bit warmer than I think what we were anticipating. The humidity was around 82, 85% when we started. So it wasn't as great, I think, as we all thought it was going to be. Like, I definitely noticed the humidity for sure. When I ran Chicago 2 years ago, which was where my PR was, um, it was 47 degrees, but the humidity was quite low. It was like in the 20s or 30s. And that really does make a difference when you have that like cool Midwestern air versus like it's cool, but it's still humid. So you're still sweating quite a bit. Cause I was like soaked through my kit by like the 10K and I was like, cool, cool, great. Like I kind of know how this is already going to go. I'm just losing a lot of electrolytes, right? But I thought that that was such a cool piece to the race. That's something that was different from last year and it was just very special to this year with Taylor being there the week before. Cole Hawker was there to be part of the expo and to be part of that experience, and then he sent us on our way. Did you love it, Jenna?
Oh yeah, no, that was great. I think like them playing that, it was very just like very inspirational, very motivational to like just get you going and like get the energy going and everything. And like having him there to like send us off was really cool. I just think you don't always get that, so it was kind of just it was a fun atmosphere to be in for sure.
Yeah, it was totally fun. And if anyone cares to know, we did jump the gate at the corral to get into the corral. We jumped it. Well, we climbed through it. People were like, wow, yes,
Yeah,
multi-talented.
and I just jumped ahead a section too.
Yeah, we found out at bid pickup that Jenna was in B corral and I was in A. We're like, huh, how is this going to work running together? Great. You can sneak in. Okay. So let's see. Let's just quickly, Jenna, go over process goals, outcome goals of our race before we get into the questions. Do you want to do that? Did you have any process goals or performance standards about like how you wanted to show up on race day?
Yeah, I mean, I think in terms of, process and performance goals, some of it, my training cycle in general was a bit rocky. Like I just had a few like I don't know, Nelna didn't want to call them setbacks, but just like little things that happened where I had to take like a few days off or like alter a week or, modify different workouts and things like that,
Yeah.
basically leading up to the race. And so I think when we talked, or when Nell and I talked about like planning for the race and everything like that, it was semi loose. Like it was, a lot of it was going to be based on how I was feeling, how different things were holding together. I mean, I more so wanted to just PR, if anything. But it's like I think I had more set goals, like maybe earlier on in the training of like that mid to lower, like 3 hour point. And then I think just like as things were happening, it was more of a like, we're just going to have to see
Yeah.
which happens in training. Uh,
Yeah.
so it was
And what
kind of
was your
rolling
yeah,
with that. 319.
319. And when was that? What course?
That was May 2023 at the Buffalo Marathon.
Great. Awesome. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that was something we didn't really talk about on social media. We did highlight a lot of like the joy, a lot of the fun, and of course, we did have a pretty tough long run and some workouts too that we wanted to highlight, but we didn't really spend time focusing on the fact that we weren't always running the same workouts. Yes, it was a literal copy and paste, but sometimes Jenna would jump off the track and like we would do like every other rep, or the long run would be a little bit modified, or just be, or she'd be biking next to me or something like that. But I truly saw it as something that would probably help you yesterday than hurt you because, you can kind of fly too close to the sun in marathon training, right? And if you're showing up and I wouldn't even call it undertrained, but that's how people like describe it. It's actually better than being overtrained or overcooked. Like you can do more with that. And knowing we had each other and thinking, and yes, this course is fast, but I wasn't really prepared for the hills. Thinking it was more like Chicago, which is just more gradual or flat, like we would cruise. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no, and I agree. Like, I definitely think that that saved me in some ways for sure. Like having those little things of like keeping me relatively like getting to the starting line healthy. So I do think like in some ways it can be helpful and like you said, better to be a little bit undercooked, and have fresher legs going into the race for sure.
Yeah, for sure. How did your taper feel?
Ugh,
Yeah.
man. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if it like ever feels great. It just feel like little just like not running as much, little crankiness there, and like the body just sometimes doesn't feel like refreshed. Like you're like waiting for the moment to feel refreshed and then
Yeah.
like kind of feel worse.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, you had to deal with me the week after my birthday, the week of October 28th. I was not a happy human at all. Yeah, I feel like my process goals, or I know my process goals for this cycle were to be focused and to work on not really work on pacing, but just lean into my pacing strengths and really lean into that like more metronome style pacing that I want to do in long runs and workouts and then apply that to yesterday. And so those were kind of my two big process goals for the training cycle. My PR was 3:15 21 from Chicago 2 years ago. So I was hoping for conversation was like 3:02 to 3:05. If you feel good at the 10K, start to move and you can try and go after a sub 3. So that was kind of the space I was in. And I was really surprised yesterday when we came through the 5K, we were 30 seconds off. And I was like, geez, okay, that's okay. Like we'll make it up. It's fine. This is like the first 5K. But we did when we came through the 10K, I said, okay, we made up time. We're only 20 seconds behind now. But it was just kind of this like, I guess this is just where we are today. And the paces never really felt anytime we were hitting like, we were supposed to be hitting 7 for the first half and then cutting down from there. And anytime we were hitting 6:57 quite a bit, which was what I really wanted my average to be yesterday. And it just didn't feel like we weren't holding it. It's like we slipped back to like 7:05. And it was just like really hard to hold it. And I felt like sometimes it can be the people around you. It was really hard to run next to each other just with like the flow of the people, the road situation. And it just always felt like there was someone hanging out where like you and I couldn't get our stride for stride together because there was someone else like right there, which is fine. They're running the race too, but it just kind of added this extra kind of piece to it. But we had a lot of fun, which was also a process goal for this season. A lot of fun on and off the track.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I was just gonna say, I think I know we'll get into this about the paces and everything like that, but yeah, I mean that's definitely a tricky piece. And I noticed that like it always felt like someone was right in front when one of us were passing and like clipping heels, and it's like one of those things that can just throw you off, and it's hard to like latch on to a pace.
Yeah, it's like by the time we had kind of had that freedom, it was like I was already dying at that point. So I'm like, I don't need the freedom. I need people around me now. But yeah, I mean, I think like yeah, for my taper, I would say the taper started early. Taper started very early. I made a comment to my coach after running a 21-mile long run with Jenna, which we executed flawlessly. Like if that was the race, congratulations to us. And it was great. The paces felt pretty good and everything just kind of like clicked, right?
Hmm.
And I said in my comments something about like my legs being tired at the start, and I was really proud of myself for running this really strong effort on tired legs from the start. And then at practice on Wednesday, I guess I said, yeah, my legs are feeling kind of tired or heavy. And then from that moment on, I think we were like 3.5 weeks out, my mileage got absolutely slashed. And I was running very little to try and like get them to repair and heal as fast as possible to be able to feel poppy and fresh, which I still didn't feel yesterday. I felt like a bee yesterday. Didn't you? I mean, like I didn't feel like I didn't feel poppy, I didn't feel fresh, I didn't feel terrible,
Yeah.
but like yeah, I just kind of felt like a bee yesterday. Like this
Yeah.
is where we're at. Yeah.
I
Maybe a
agree. And
B
it's hard.
minus.
Yeah, and it's like hard when you're like starting the race feeling that way because you're and you don't know which direction it's gonna go because
Right.
sometimes you
I'm
feel
like,
better.
we could warm up. Yeah.
Yeah,
This could get better. This could get a lot better. No, we made the turn at the halfway point, which was where we were supposed to start picking things
racing.
up. And we just had headwind and hills. I'm like, well,
Here we are.
here we are. Looks steep. Okay, so with that, we're going to get into the questions because we have a lot of them. All right, so thank you to everyone who added to the conversation on this. We're going to start with training prep. When did the training feel like it clicked during your build? Jenna?
That's a good question.
I know when
I
it didn't, but
I know, I
that's
was
a
gonna say that one's
question.
more obvious. Yeah, I feel like so for me, I guess it's a little bit different too, because part of it was like coming in and starting a marathon build, like also transitioning to altitude. So I think it took like a little bit longer on that end for me to like feel good during and like being able to breathe and stuff like that and recover well during workouts. I feel like there were some Wednesday workouts, like maybe September-ish, where like we were just like crushing like week after week and just like feeling
But not
really good,
overrunning.
not
We
overrun.
were like holding back,
Yeah,
feeling strong, running
yeah,
very fast. Yeah.
exactly. And I feel like around that point, it was like, I'm like, oh, I feel good. And if this is like right now, like it just started to come together because we had the base build done and we just were like starting to do these workouts that I feel like our legs were still fairly fresh and it just felt good.
Yeah. I would say I also thought about the Wednesday versus the Saturday long runs because the Saturday long runs were just there. I mean, our first long run with quality was 20 miles with it was a 5555 10 miles of marathon pace in between 5 easy. So it was 5 easy, 5 at marathon, 5 easy, 5 at marathon. That's a pretty big long run for most people. And to get that like right out of the gate, we're like, okay, like this is like, what people get at the end of their cycle and we're starting with it, right? So I thought about the Wednesday workouts. And the two that kind of popped in my mind, I think they were both in one was definitely in September, one could have been early October. It was the 8x1K workout where we ran as a team and we have some fast people on our team. And Nell said, when the first person crosses the line, that's when the 60 seconds recovery starts. And I just like look around and I'm like, well, shiz, I'm the last one in this group. So like Vanessa and I were like, woo, 44 seconds, cool. And we were doing these Ks at threshold, but the fourth and eighth one were fast. So threshold for reference was around 6:30 to 6:35. The fast one needed to be under 6. And there wasn't a lot of recovery time. And when I executed that and like I was just like, got through all 8. I mean, we definitely all of us felt it the next day on that recovery run. Our legs were so tired. That was like the day I was like, "Oh, that was a big workout," and I handled it, and I handled it really well. And then the other one that sticks out were the mile repeats or the 1,600 meter repeat days because we PR'd the 1,600 meter. We ran like a 5:55 with a little bit more gas to go. A little bit more gas to go, but that's okay. And that was a great day for us too. That was a huge workout. And anytime that you can get your mile, the faster you can get the mile, the faster you can run the marathon. So like you want to see that all translate. And if you're running PRs in training without putting yourself into the hole, right? It's like every week Nell was saying, do not crush this. Like try and keep this like as controlled and as strong as you can. That's the win. that is the win. And that's one of the biggest takeaways I have from this training cycle is like, don't race in training. Like, take it, like, run strong, run comfortable, run within your means, and don't like overrun every single workout, every single long run, push things to the limit because you just run your race that way and you like set yourself up to just have a really hard race day.
Yeah, it's funny with those mile repeats because I know how much we were both like dreading it, like of when it was going to appear,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
finally did.
Every week we talked about it. Every week. Every week we had an emoji that we were using to signal like so for reference, Nell gives us our Wednesday workouts on Tuesday nights. And so anytime, as soon as one person gets their workout, there's like a group text and the phone just starts blowing up. So, your workout's loaded. And we decided to create this like emoji reference to be like, this is the week we get the mile repeats. And we got them. It's probably the first week in October.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, that was a good one. It was a
Mhm.
good one for sure.
Yeah, it was great. So I think that's when it really clicked. So that would have been 5, 6-ish weeks out from training. And then, for me, 3.5 weeks out, I really started to pull back quite a bit with mileage. Jenna got to hold some mileage, which was nice, and then flow through the taper and get through race. Question number 2. How do you prep during training and for race day with nutrition? Do you count macros? So I don't count macros per se in training. I really just kind of eat based on, oh gosh, this is tough. It's like I eat based on hunger cues, but you can't always follow hunger cues. So I definitely just eat a lot. And I really try to focus on if I am a little bit more tired or maybe a little bit more irritable, I probably just need to eat. And so I would do that in training. And for macros, we did a 2-day carb load for this cycle. I did a two-day carb load for this cycle. And that was advice from Jonah Rosner, who is a sport scientist. He's fabulous. You can follow him on Instagram. He's hilarious. He's coming to Boulder in December, and I really hope I get to chat with him and meet with him. I focused in on anywhere from 400 to 500 grams of carbohydrates on Thursday and Friday leading into the race. Typically, I've done a 3-day carb load, but Jonah says you don't need it. And I focused in on his recommendation of grams of carbohydrates per kilogram, or I always translate it to pounds because it's a little bit easier for me to do it that way. But because I don't know how many kilos I am, but I know how many pounds I am, and that seemed to work well for me. And then obviously, I had like all my gels laid out. I don't know if anyone asked us about that. So I took SIS gels with 2 Morton calf gels. So the SIS gels have 160 grams of carbo or 160 calories, 40 grams of carbohydrates. So I was taking in about 80 to 85 grams of carbohydrates per hour yesterday.
Yeah. And I think for me, in terms of like general nutrition, similar. I think like I definitely will eat, you know, by when I'm hungry. But also, I try to think of it too, like typically there's like, all my meals and like I'm making sure like I'm getting something in basically every few hours, like in between kind of thing, just keeping like fuel in the tank. And I think it might have been Sarah Hall or someone had said about like not actually letting yourself get to hunger when you're marathon training sometimes, because then it's like you're past like you need to almost be like not letting yourself get to empty. So I tried to think about that a lot. And then in terms of the carbo load, very, very similar. I think that's the only time I really tried to like track anything. I don't normally count macros or anything like that, but a similar like 400 to 500 in there. I think it's funny, um, at the hotel, kind of our table of carbs that we just had laying out. I think we got through at least like 80% of those, probably all the bagels and everything else that we had there. And yeah, yeah, very similar. And then with the gels, I use the SIS and the Morton Calf as well. And then I also used the Carbs Fuel Gel, which had about 50 grams of carbs.
Yeah.
Carbs.
Yeah, so we're both gluten-free, so the carbo load looks a little bit different for us, and I always like to travel with most of my carbohydrates just because it is a little bit more difficult to find things, especially in certain parts of the country, and I wanted to make sure I had everything that I wanted. So, gluten-free bread, gluten-free bagels, I brought cereal, we had Morton mixed drinks, we had the Morton bars. We drank orange juice because Jonah talks about the difference between glucose and fructose and how you actually need both and how you actually need both the morning of your race because your liver, I think, uses all of your fructose while you're sleeping. And so you're depleted in that area. Morton gels have fructose in them, which is great. But I also wanted to make sure I was having like honey and jam that morning of the race. And I mean, I think it's really important that you focus in on the carbs that you can. Obviously, the simple carbs are best, like potatoes, rice, pastas, the breads, cereals, things like that. The mixes, I have to say this cycle I drank more of my calories and carbohydrates than in any other cycle, and I found it to be a little bit easier to take it all in and digest than just trying to eat all of it.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think about the past couple days, and if we had tried to eat all of that, I mean, that would have been rough.
Yeah, yeah, because you don't want to end up bloated. You don't want to end up with stomach or GI issues on race day, which I think both of us that morning were feeling a little off in that area. I was fine during the race, but like before the race, I was like, I don't know. But it is something to like make sure that you don't overdo it, which is why for a lot of athletes that I coach, it is something that we practice and we practice it either right before peak week or it could be peak week. And then if it doesn't necessarily work the way that we want it to work, maybe they do have GI problems or there is something kind of going on, then we have another week that we can focus in on that. And it's just like a one day simulation before a pretty important long run. And that's a really cool, I think, piece to the training that I get to do with the Elevate athletes. And yeah, I think we did great on the carb load situation and taking our gels and making sure we had enough with us.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm going to combine two questions because they're kind of the same. I see your splits. Thanks. Did you go out with 305 in mind? And then the other question is, how did you maintain your race pace for the entire 26.2 miles? So we didn't maintain race pace for the entire 26.2 miles. And that it wasn't the goal to start out at race pace and just hold. I think I actually don't know. I don't coach anyone. I've never had a race strategy like that. I mean, I know the elites go out and maintain, and I have some friends and some people that I know from Instagram, very, very fast people, like the 230 to 236 marathoners are going out and just like going out at race pace and holding. Our plan was to we both had the same plan, kind of. Like we both had start at 7, hold through the half, and then start to kick down. I kind of had a little bit of wiggle room where if I felt really good and 7 felt terribly slow, I could start moving down to 6:55 at the 10K. Well, none of that really happened. I think we were struggling to find 7 and be around 7 through the half. And the second half of the race, we were it's obviously all by feel too, right? Because like you can have a plan and it may or may not work, right? So the plan was to start working down to 650 for the second half and then, at some point there was conversation around like, maybe the last 5K you're running a pace and maybe it's just like push as hard as you can push for that last 5K. You might get a pace quite similar to what you were running on the track within like this threshold area that we were running, which was between 635 and 650. I saw that for 0.3 miles when I had my kick to bring it home to Taylor. I did not have it at the end of the race. I got slower in the second half, which was very disappointing even though I was pushing very hard. And I think the wind had a lot to do with that. Maybe the hills, and then definitely I get to work on my mindset a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think like the first half, and I think it was kind of like you said, where it was like we almost started at like a B day kind of thing. Like it just that pace was like not as easy as like I was hoping, especially like being at sea level, having tapered, like and considering
Yeah.
the week before we had done a 5K tempo at 7 minute pace, and we were like trying to
Felt
slow
so
down.
good. I know.
It was so good. And so, yeah, I feel like the first half I was kind of like waiting. I was like, okay, it's gonna get better. It's gonna get better. It's gonna get better. And yeah, and essentially for me, I mean, same thing. Obviously, like fell off pace, had some like bad like quad cramping issues, that slowed me down. But it's tough when you go out and that pace doesn't initially feel great. But it's just kind of being adaptable and flexible on the day.
Yeah, you have to. And that's something Nell, I think, said to you, Jenna. She's like, it's so hard to kind of know how you're going to feel. So, like, this is what I can tell you to go out at. But it is kind of up to us to know our bodies, know what we're capable of, trust ourselves, do what we can do in that moment. And that's kind of how she approaches all of our races. Sometimes I'll get like a mile and then just she tells me to race smart. So it's not this like in-depth conversation that I think a lot of people think it probably is. It's actually very there's a lot of autonomy. We get a lot of freedom to like do what we need to do. I think the biggest thing that always comes to mind with her is like, she doesn't really do this anymore, but she did when I first started. Is like, if we would run too fast on the track, she would make us hold it as a way, I think, to like tell us, like, if you're going to like go out and just do this thing that's like not, listening to like, the paces that are prescribed, I want you to be able to hold it. I need you to prove to me that you can do this. And it's kind of true with the racing, right? Like if we were to had, if you go out fast in a race, like you almost have to like hold up your end of the bargain there and just continue to race at that pace to show her that you can versus blowing up. And yeah, that's kind of I guess maybe a little tangent, but yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to the pacing and stuff, we both got slower in the second
Mhm.
half, which I wasn't expecting. I thought we were gonna feel really good. I thought we were gonna feel really strong. I was visualizing a very strong second half where I was just, like, crushing 650s, and I think we got down to 51 once, and that was in the first half, so that was kinda disappointing, but also kind of the day, kind of the marathon. I think I still have a little bit to learn on feel and racing and how to kind of push in that second half too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's tough. Marathon doesn't owe us anything, and you have to take each one in stride and just kind of do what you can from it. And yeah, it just depends on the day a lot of the time.
Yeah, definitely. Another question that's pretty similar is race strategy from Nell. Did you end up following it? Yeah, we did through the first half. And then and then we just, I think tried to limit the damage as best as we could from there. Yeah. And I wouldn't say like at the half I felt terrible, but I didn't feel great because I remember David turned to me and he's like, "How you feeling?" And I'm like, "Good." But it wasn't like this, like, positive it was just kinda, like, flat and just kind of like, ugh, like, "Oh, we're at the half." I mean, my legs were definitely very, very, very tired at 16. I was surprised at how tired they felt at 16, and part of me wonders if it was the road and, like, needing to kind of, like, maneuver around instead of just run straight, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think there were a lot of extra things to like think about that used a lot of energy. Because I know when we talked about where we were sore, it's a lot of like the same places.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I'm sure
yeah.
some of it's that.
Lower body is fantastic. Feet,
Yeah,
ankles, calves feels great. Everything above that, not in good
not
not in a
great.
good place right now. When did you really need to dig deep? For me, it was when I realized we lost the 3:05 pace group. We had fell back to like 7:20 pace, and I looked down at my watch and I was just like, "F, like, we gotta go." And I went, and I knew Jenna didn't come with me. at that point. I knew she didn't. I could feel her like not there, right? And it got windy. This was maybe around mile like 14, 15. It was like hilly, just the road and stuff. It all just kind of felt hard kind of from that point. But I think like through like 16, 17, I was just like, get through this, get through this. But then maybe the really hardest part was like we ran through this zoo, like mile 20. And from like 20 to 22, there was like really no spectators. And you're just out there trying to like not roll an ankle, like get through it. I think 20 to 22 is the hardest part for me. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, kind of around that point where kind of you went off, and like I just knew I couldn't, like, I felt pretty good the first half, but just progressively, I could just feel like my legs or my quads, like either tightening or like just like almost seizing. It's like hard to describe, but I would say, and then I'm like, okay, well, if I just like keep it here and just hold it here, like you don't need to speed up. And I would say though, around like mile like 16, 17, maybe, it got so painful where I mean, like lifting my legs was just hard. And I was like, I have like 9, 10 miles left. And I feel like around between probably miles 18 and 20 were like really tough mentally because you're like, do I just drop out or do I like keep going? Like it's a lot left to be in that much pain. And so I feel like just mentally that was like a really tough spot for me.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I feel that. It's tough when your legs don't want to move.
Yeah.
Apparently that
Kind
happens
of
in the
need those.
marathon.
Yeah. Kind of need those, right?
Kind of need those. I
I was
think
like,
it's
don't fall, don't fall, don't fall.
I know, oh my God. I know. How did you prepare your mental toughness as part of your race strategy? For me, I visualized a lot, but I don't think I visualized on the right things. I did visualize on good things, but I was really trying to stay very positive that I wasn't going to feel bad until like 22. And then I'm like, you can do anything for 4 miles. But like, I really started to not feel great at 16. And I wasn't totally ready for that. So I think I need to do a better job of like visualizing and working through like a longer grind. I mean, we had a lot of grindy workouts on the track where we were running this very uncomfortable pace that was around threshold with very little recovery, kind of like that 8x1K that I talked about. We had that workout I think 4 times, but it turned into different things where it was like, a 1K and then and then we ended up doing 2Ks and then 2 miles and it was like a series. So, like, it was all around 5 or 6 miles, but it was so many laps on the track and you just kind of had to like grind through it. So I felt like between those two things, then of course that epic 22 miler that we ran with 16 at moderate, so that was about 2 hours at this very like uncomfortable, not fast, not slow pace. I thought we were ready. I think I still need more help with that. And I think what I'm doing in 2025, and we'll talk a little bit about that too here quickly, is I'm going to be racing more to get more of that like racing skill set, get uncomfortable with being uncomfortable and holding it. And hopefully it translates to if there's marathon number 8. That's a big if. What about you, Jenna?
Yeah, I mean, I think going into it, I try to tell myself like that it's gonna hurt. Like you're doing all these hard workouts, you're doing all this training to like prepare for that. Like and you're working through a lot of these like tough situations. And I know we talked about every single long run we had, it was something that like was off or something
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
happened.
we
And it
didn't
was
have a
like,
perfect long run.
no.
No.
Like it
Oh
was
my
like
god.
working through that. So I knew the race. I'm like, well, something's gonna like it's very rare for all the stars to align. And I was like, at some point, it's going to hurt. Like, that's the marathon. And
Yeah.
I think just knowing that going in and also knowing, like, when I was in a lot of pain, just like, you're choosing to do this. Like, this is like I chose to be doing the marathon or to be
Really, I
racing
kept
this.
asking myself,
Yeah.
why did we choose the marathon? We should have ran the half. We would have had a
Oh,
great
don't get me
day.
wrong. I was thinking that too. When we passed the half point, I was like, well, that was our last chance.
No, I turned to you and I was like, "Do you wanna go?" Probably not the best mindset to be in either, to be joking about taking the turn at the half.
Yeah. But like 80% serious.
I know. I think, based on how we were feeling at mile 7 where that split happened, it's like, yeah, yeah, I could go that way for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and it's tough. And I think it's like we can practice all these things, but it's like having to do it over and over because when you're in the race and you're in so much pain and all these things are going wrong, it's like very hard to like recenter yourself.
Yeah, there was a lot happening, and it is true. We had a lot happen in training. We've had tour buses that we've had to navigate around. We've had summer, like 80-degree weather to run through after we deacclimated the heat. I forgot my shoes. I forgot a water bottle on 2 separate occasions. So that was 2 separate long runs. And we had a gel explosion. I had a gel explosion. One of my SIS gels just completely exploded all over me. And that gel is one of the stickiest gels on the market. And we got to go to a Boulderthon shakeout run after that. And I couldn't get it off. Like wet wipes, like nothing was taking it off, like just a good old fashioned shower. So like we've had that. And what else? Is there anything I'm forgetting?
Oh, the time that I was having like an injury and you picked me up on the side of the road
Yeah.
where we went the wrong direction, we got lost.
Yeah, we got lost on the long run. We took the wrong route. And we ran extra hills because of that. Yeah, Jenna didn't finish a long run, so I had to pick her up on the side of the road, which is about 5 miles from where I ended my run. Yeah, I mean, there was just always something. I think what was really cool is we saw Sarah Vaughn quite a bit in this training cycle, and she was just such a powerhouse at New York. So that was really fun.
Hmm.
She was out on the road quite a bit. Okay, last question about the race day. How were the crowds? Was there a lot of spectator energy and support? I think I was pleasantly surprised with the crowd support. I thought it was great. What I loved a lot about running with the 305 pace group is that we got a lot of energy from that because a lot of people were yelling out the time. And if you're going for a PR, and for us, it would have been, a huge breakthrough day for both of us, it was exciting,
Hmm.
even if we weren't feeling like the best. So I really loved that, but I thought, like I said earlier, miles 20 to 22, maybe even from 18 to 22, it was just like there wasn't anyone really out, and that was pretty tough.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I thought it was great. There were definitely some great sections. Like the finish like line, I liked how long it was. I felt like it was a really cool shoot to go through and that was really great. It's always like fun when you're running through communities and people get super excited about it. So it's always fun.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, great. Now we're going into miscellaneous questions. So we have 3. How important are fitness and weather for great races? So I think this depends on what great means to you. If outcome is your focus, you need to be fit, right? Fitness has to be there. And you probably need to have better weather. Now, some people can run in hot and humid conditions, but ideally you're running in low humidity and the temperature is under 55 degrees throughout the race. Anytime you're over 55 degrees, you're just going to sweat more. You're going to lose more electrolytes. You're going to need to take in more. And there's just a greater chance of slowing down. That's the human anatomy. But also, like, some people can do well. So you kind of have to know yourself and know how you run in weather and what's going to set you up for success. Indy, I chose Indy because I thought the weather is going to be better and the course is flat.
Hmm.
Of course, well, not necessarily true, but also not necessarily not true?
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's just again, like you said, it really depends. I mean, I think if like you said, if you're going after a specific goal, it's kind of like all these things need to align,
Bingo. You hit the perfect thing.
And I think what was nice, about how we went into it too, or was helpful, was like having like a window of like being like generally like this like between these two things would be something I'm going after because I think it's like to account for all those little things that can happen because I think it's like you don't always know and sometimes like your fitness and weather and all of that lines perfectly but other times like little things happen or you could have great fitness and you just don't feel good on race.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've heard it all. We've heard it from teammates. I've coached athletes. It's like, the course, the weather, the fitness, the training cycle, and then, of course, how your body feels on race day. It all adds up. knowing that there is not going to be a perfect marathon. There's always going to be something that comes up during the day. For me, I don't know if you noticed this, Jenna, like yesterday, but like the top to my water bottle came off, took a drink, and I'm like, oh my God, don't drop that because like you're not going to be able to like take in any
Yeah.
more water if I dropped it. And I like thankfully like got it back on. Everything was fine, but it was just like this another like jolt of stress of just like, ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, good
Um,
save. Good
yeah.
save.
Ugh. How does Indy compare to CIM or other races? So I think it's definitely like it's a well organized race. It's a pretty big race. I think they had 1,000 runners between the 5K, half, and marathon. So it's not like a Houston. Houston has 30,000 runners. CIM has quite a few as well. But I think if you're looking to PR, Indy is a good course for it. You just, maybe we could all petition for them to like pave the roads or something. I don't know. But or maybe we all chip in a little bit for next year because if the road was smooth, I mean, e- it would be a faster course for sure. I mean, I'd have to think. I mean, I don't think we're the only two people that were like trying to not break an ankle yesterday, right?
Easily. I mean,
Yeah.
you could just watch people and how they were running and stuff like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I think Indy's definitely one of those up there that like is a good one to PR. It's a good time of the year now that they pushed it back a little bit. Like should realistically be a little bit cooler temperatures and
Yeah.
stuff.
Training
Um,
starts later in the summer. Yeah. Yeah, and it's great. I mean, yeah, I mean, and it's pretty inexpensive compared to other travel marathons, in my opinion. So that's nice too. And at least for us flying out of DIA in Denver, it was a pretty easy flight, which was
yep.
nice too.
And I would just add, I felt like it was a very easy, like, I mean, it depends where you stay, I guess, but like we could get to the start line really quickly
Well, yeah.
and the finish line was right there.
Yeah, pro tip, stay at the West End.
Yeah.
The finish line is right next to that hotel, which is a lot of fun, and we could see the finish line from our hotel room, which was also really fun to be able to see that. But I think it's a great course if you're looking to PR, if you're looking for something new, if you don't love summer running, I think Indy is a great option, especially, CIM is hilly in the first half of the race and then it flattens out, which can be a fast course for some people and it can be a pretty slow course if you can't turn the legs over after 13 miles of hills. So, I think Indy does have a few hills in the back half. It is kind of known to be windy. This is not the first year it was windy and that's okay. I mean, all things considered, you're not going to get a perfect course, you're not going to get a perfect situation, that's just like part of racing, but I think it's a good one for sure. If you haven't checked it out, check it out. I know a lot of people who have run it want to do it again. I would
Hmm.
1,000% go back to the half. A
Hmm.
1,000%.
Hmm.
It's fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the half marathon is faster than the marathon course for sure. Because we had all the hills in the second half of the marathon, and you don't have those in the half.
Yeah. Next
Yeah.
time.
Second to last question. Did you get a selfie with a huge picture of Taylor on that building in Indy? So we didn't, and that's my fault because we got in late. It was already dark on Thursday night when we got in, and so I saw this ode to Taylor, this like shrine on Instagram. And I was like, Jenna, Taylor is on the JW Marriott next to us, and we have got to check this out tomorrow morning. So we wake up, we put on some clothes, and we head out to see Taylor and to get a coffee. And Jenna's like, do you want to take a selfie? And I specifically said to her, no, I just woke up and I don't have any makeup on and I haven't had any coffee. No. But then we never, like, revisited that conversation, like and I think, Friday ended up being we relaxed a lot, but it ended up being a little bit more than I wanted. I think you agreed to that, and it was just, like, one more thing to do, and then Saturday ended up being just a really fast day cluster and getting checked out of the hotel in time, and you had family in town. I was meeting Melissa from Elevate. I coach her and she came in to support and cheer. She was so sweet. She was at mile 23 and she was like, you didn't look good. And I'm like, I don't know who looks good at mile 23. No, show me a person. I don't know. Yeah, I was in a pretty dark place at that time. I was like, let's just get this over with. Um, But no, we didn't get a selfie, but we did get just a picture that I posted on Instagram. And that was a lot of fun. But I know people who had like there was the Indy signage thing that you could like stand on, so it was like part of a whole thing. But no, we didn't do that. We should have. That was my fault.
Yeah.
And being a master's runner, being 42, I was like, I
Opportunity
need
missed.
coffee and I need a little bit of makeup. Okay, last question. What's next for you? Jenna, I'm going to let you lead because we're basically doing the same thing.
Man. Okay, so yeah, we're really taking a break from some marathons, longer distance stuff, and 2025 looking towards like some shorter races. So looking at going to Houston to start off in January, 5K, and then a couple basically other shorter distance ones kind of throughout the spring.
Yeah, we're going to be running quite a few 5K. At least I'm running quite a few 5Ks. We have three pivotal like travel races that I think will be great for us. And then I'm highly considering adding more races to my calendar that I don't want to do, but I know I need to do. And running them at altitude and seeing if I can kind of break through some mental stuff going on and just getting better at racing because if you can master the racing skill set, you can take that to the marathon. And I don't know if I'm quite sure if I want to go back to the marathon until I have that piece locked in. I think for my Chicago race, it was easy to be in a better mindset because it was an easy race. Like I felt great. Like I felt A plus that day. So like when you feel A plus, the mental side isn't you don't have to tap into that as much. I don't think that's my opinion. Where when you're having like a B minus day, like because I would consider my outcome like a B minus, not like it wasn't 302, which was like A plus was sub 3, B was 305, B minus 308, but I'm still very, very proud of it. I'm very, very happy about it. I've had races where I've blown up more than I did yesterday. So I'm really happy with that. But I feel like, yeah, I need to kind of master that. And before we even can get to Houston to run that 5K, we get to take, I think Nell's giving us quite a long time off and when we get back to it, you're not going to see us on the track for about 5 weeks, I think, which is pretty long. But it's also setting us up for success for 2025, letting our bodies really like decompress and heal from this training cycle and how big it was. And I also think that, it's okay for your goals to shift, to do other things. We are so excited to get back to speed. I am so excited to get back to running a lot, but not running quite as much as I was for this cycle and having a better balance between it all. Really had to, I think Jenna and I both had to like, really lean into the training. And we were just tired all the time. So we didn't do much outside of running and working. And that's kind of it's not a great place to be in for a long time. You need to be out of that for a while. So I'm excited to get out of that. And then we have the Houston 5K, we have the McCurdy 10K, which is going to be epic. And then we have another 5K in April. And then maybe a half. I think someone's trying to convince me to do a half or maybe two halves. I think he's trying to convince me to do two halves next spring. We'll see. We need to find him first. Okay. Is there anything else you want to add, Jenna?
Mainly just like, I don't know, to wrap up with Indy. Yeah, it was a great cycle, great like experience. I think if you can find someone to like just go through a cycle with and train with, it just makes it such a great experience.
And that you hang out outside of
Yeah.
the training. That's been the game changer because there's been other people, other girls on the team that I've like, oh, I'm running this long run with, or we have the same workout. But this was different. This was like every workout, every long run, every Saturday we got coffee and either a breakfast bagel sandwich or a breakfast sandwich. And depending on what part of town we were in.
Yep.
And some days, we had time to like relax a little bit. There were other weekends where it was like quite a bit rushed, and 22-mile long run in particular, I'm like, I can't do strength after this. I just have to go home. I am so tired. I'm so tired. I just need to be like alone on the couch watching TV. And that's just kind of how it goes, you know, but it's so fun to be able to do it all together. And we have like so many great memories, so many great photos, friendship bracelets, the number 13 that just flows through our training, and apparently the aisle that we sit in
Mhm.
and on the plane and all the things. So, yeah, it was super, super special. So if you can find someone to do all of it with and to be friends with outside of the training, it's going to make you, I think, a stronger runner, a stronger human. I've not been shy about talking about this. I've had so much fun in this cycle. And a lot of it is because of you and the training and what we've done and all the shenanigans outside of training. But it's just been so much fun. And when you can have joy and you have people in your life that really like truly, truly, truly support you, where you actually like feel it, it's not just words, but you actually feel it from them, it just creates this level of like fun relaxation, and I think it allows your nervous system to like also release and calm down, and that is something that I 1,000% needed after the cherry blossom build this spring, and the universe rewarded me twice over. I'm very grateful.
Well, don't make me blush, Sarah, but no. Well, I feel the same way. But yeah, no, it's been great. It's been such a special build, and I don't think
Yeah.
I've laughed as much in my life. So
I know, I know. Very quickly, I know this episode's really long, but at the beginning of our training cycle, I mean, we were just laughing all the time, like to the point of like, I felt really bad when this happened at practice because like Nell said something and it wasn't about what she's, I don't know if it was about like the pace, but I was like, oh, this is not our 10K effort. And we just started to like lose it. And we do these like just big belly laughs. We're just like pitched over, laughing so hard, slightly peeing. Like it's just so aggressive. And it kind of we lost it, definitely. I would say to the Instagram follower who asked like when training clicked, I think that's when we lost our laugh. Because things got hard and we were very, very tired. Like a teammate had said to me, like, "Are you excited about Indy?" And this was like maybe 6 weeks out, maybe we were in peak, so like 4 or 5 weeks out. And I'm just like, "Yeah." And she's like, "You don't seem like excited." And I'm like, "I'm just really tired." Like, I don't know. You know, I'm running a 76-mile week. It's 7 a.m. I'm just trying to make it through.
it gets to you.
Yeah.
It
Ask
gets to
me in a
you.
month.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, thanks everyone for your support. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being so invested in our training, being invested in Jenna. It was so wonderful to hear from so many followers and also athletes that I coach who said that they were following both of us yesterday. It wasn't just a singular follow. And we made it special for anyone who did want to follow both of us. We used a picture of us together on the app. We went in and updated our settings on Friday, and so we used a picture of us running on the track together, but we zoomed in our own picture, like our own profile for our profile picture. So if you saw us on the map, we were running together in this photo on the track. So if you followed both of us, maybe you caught on to that. I thought it was pretty cute, but I don't know. Nell wasn't quite sure when we told her. All right. Well, thank you everyone for your support. We love you so much. And this is probably not the last time you're going to hear from Jenna. I have a feeling she'll be back on the podcast again. So thanks everyone. Thanks, Jenna.
Thanks, Sarah.